I won big. Not the kind of money people whisper about, 3 solid years of non-stop payments, contracts clearing, debts erased. The kind of money that changes how people look at you when they think you're not paying attention. I was 29, married, steady, and finally ahead in a life where I'd always been catching up. And then, days before our Christmas party, my wife looked me straight in the face and said, "You know what would be the greatest surprise? If you just stopped living." Before I tell you how everything unraveled after that, do me a small favor. Stick with this story. Let it travel. Leave a comment, tell me where you're listening from or what time it is for you. It helps more than you think. The words didn't come during a fight. That's what made them worse. We were standing in the kitchen of our place in Cedar Ridge, lights already strung along the staircase, the smell of pine cleaner sharp in the air. Miranda was scrolling on her phone, barely looking at me, like I was another appliance humming in the background. I laughed at first. Not because it was funny, but because my brain refused to accept it. "What did you just say?" I asked. She sighed. Annoyed. Like I'd asked her to repeat a grocery list. "I mean, Ethan, life would just be easier. No more explaining. No more waiting. No more, you." That was the moment something shut off inside me. Not anger. Not sadness. Precision. I'd spent most of my life being useful. The dependable guy. The fixer. The one who paid on time, covered gaps, smoothed edges. When Miranda and I married, she was still building her career, still finding herself. I covered the rent. Then the car. Then the credit cards she promised were temporary. When my contracts started paying out, monthly, reliable, heavy, everything accelerated. The house. The remodel. The Christmas party she insisted had to be perfect. And suddenly, I wasn't a husband anymore. I was infrastructure. That night, after she went to bed without another word, I sat at the dining table alone. The place settings were already laid out for the party. Gold napkin rings. Custom menus with our names printed at the top like we were hosting a gala instead of friends who came mostly for free drinks. I opened my laptop and logged into Northgate Financial. I didn't change anything yet. I just looked. Every outgoing payment. Every automatic withdrawal. Mortgage. Utilities. Insurance. Her car. Her phone. Subscriptions I'd never used. It was all tied to me. The next morning, Miranda acted normal. Too normal. She hummed while pouring coffee. Kissed my cheek like muscle memory. Told me Lauren was coming early to help decorate. Lauren always came early. By noon, they were in the living room whispering while I worked from the spare bedroom. I didn't need to eavesdrop. The walls carried everything. My name floated through the house like an object, not a person. That afternoon, I made my first move. I called Northgate Financial and separated every account that had my name on it. Clean. Legal. Immediate. I canceled scheduled payments, quietly. No announcements. No confrontation. I rerouted my income to a new account Miranda didn't know existed. By evening, the house was still warm with lights and music. Miranda poured wine like nothing had changed. At 8:17 p.m., her phone buzzed. At 8:18, her smile cracked. At 8:19, she asked me, very calmly, if I'd done something weird with the accounts. I looked at her and finally understood something important. She didn't want me gone because she hated me. She wanted me gone because she no longer needed me alive to access what I provided. And that's when I decided to disappear, on my terms. I woke up the next morning to the sound of my phone vibrating nonstop on the nightstand. Not ringing, buzzing. The kind of vibration that feels nervous, desperate. I didn't reach for it right away. I lay there staring at the ceiling fan, watching it rotate slowly, counting the clicks in my head. 3 clicks per rotation. Same as always. The world hadn't ended overnight. That felt important. When I finally checked the screen, there were 12 missed notifications. 8 from Miranda. 4 from unknown numbers, probably vendors for the party. I ignored them all and got out of bed. The house felt different. Not quieter, just hollow. Like a hotel room the morning after checkout. Decorations were still everywhere, but they already felt expired. The tree lights blinked unevenly. A garland had slipped halfway down the banister and hung there like it had given up. Miranda was in the kitchen, standing completely still, phone pressed to her ear, eyes wide but unfocused. She didn't notice me at first. "No, that can't be right," she said into the phone. "We've never missed a payment. Try again." I poured myself coffee. Black. No sugar. I'd stopped using sugar months ago without realizing it. She turned when she heard the mug hit the counter. Her call ended abruptly. "What did you do?" she asked. I didn't answer immediately. I took a sip, burned my tongue slightly, welcomed it. Pain that made sense. "I organized my finances," I said. Her laugh came out sharp and wrong. "That's not funny." I'm not joking. She stepped closer. The mortgage payment didn't go through. The caterer says the deposit was reversed. My car insurance just emailed me saying coverage ends in 72 hours. I nodded slowly. That sounds accurate. Her face changed then, not anger, not sadness. Calculation. The same look she used when negotiating, when deciding how much truth to reveal and how much to withhold. You can't just do this, she said. The party is in 2 days. That's true. She stared at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. Ethan, people are flying in. Lauren's parents. My boss. I know. She lowered her voice. You're trying to punish me. I finally looked at her fully. No. I'm responding. There was a difference. I think she understood that, because her shoulders stiffened. You're being dramatic, she said. About one comment. One sentence, I corrected. Very specific wording. She rolled her eyes. I didn't mean it literally. God, you're sensitive. That word, sensitive, used to work on me. It didn't anymore. I finished my coffee, rinsed the mug, and placed it upside down in the rack. The normalcy of the action seemed to irritate her more than shouting would have. So what now, she asked. You're just going to cut me off? I'm not cutting you off, I said. I'm stepping back. She crossed her arms. You think you can just walk away? From your own house? Our house, I said evenly. Which I paid for. Her jaw tightened. You're acting like money is the only thing that matters. I didn't argue. I just went to the bedroom and opened my closet. I packed slowly. Deliberately. Not everything, just essentials. Clothes. Laptop. Documents. Passport. The small notebook I kept in the back of the drawer, the one where I wrote things down when my thoughts felt too loud. Miranda followed me, pacing. Talking faster now. You're embarrassing me, she said. Lauren is already asking questions. That's unfortunate. Ethan, this is insane. You're spiraling. I zipped the bag and looked at her. No. I'm stabilizing. That afternoon, I left. I didn't slam doors. Didn't make speeches. I walked out carrying one bag and got into my car like I was heading to the grocery store. As I pulled away, I saw Miranda standing in the driveway, phone already in her hand, typing furiously. By the time I reached Harbor Point Flats, my phone had blown up completely. Voicemails. Texts. Emails. Some angry. Some pleading. Some pretending concern. You need help. This isn't healthy. We should talk to someone. Lauren says you're acting manic. That one made me smile. I checked into the apartment with minimal conversation. Harbor Point Flats wasn't fancy, but it was quiet. Clean. Neutral. No memories attached. That mattered. I sat on the bed and finally listened to the first voicemail Miranda left. Ethan, her voice said, strained and breathless. You're scaring me. This isn't like you. If you don't come back tonight, I'm calling someone. I'm serious. Calling someone. I knew what that meant. I called Daniel Rowe next. Daniel had been my lawyer for years, quiet, meticulous, allergic to drama. When I told him everything, he didn't interrupt once. She told you she wished you'd stop living, he repeated calmly. And now she's suggesting you're unstable. Yes. And you've already separated your finances. Yes. He paused. Good. Next step is documentation. By evening, Miranda escalated. She showed up at Harbor Point Flats. I didn't answer the door. I watched through the peephole as she knocked, then pounded, then cried loudly enough for neighbors to hear. You can't hide from this, she yelled. You're proving my point. I recorded everything on my phone. Every word. Eventually, security asked her to leave. The next morning, I woke up to an email from her. Subject, we need to talk about your behavior. Inside was a long message full of concern-heavy language. She'd contacted a therapist, for me. She'd scheduled an evaluation. She wanted me to attend, for my own good. That's when it became clear. She wasn't just angry. She was preparing a narrative. Over the next 2 days, I stayed silent publicly and worked privately. I met with Michael Stern, my accountant. We froze discretionary transfers. Locked down access. Created a clean paper trail. Every payment cancellation was legal. Every move documented. Meanwhile, Miranda's world started cracking. The Christmas party was cancelled. Invitations quietly withdrawn. Caterers refunded what they could. Guests whispered. Lauren posted vague stories online about loving someone through mental health challenges. Miranda texted nonstop. Please come home. You're humiliating me. I'm worried about you. Then the tone shifted. If you don't cooperate, I'll have no choice. That night, Daniel called me. She filed paperwork, he said. Not formal yet. But she's consulting about declaring you temporarily unfit to manage your finances. I close my eyes. Based on what? Emotional distress. Sudden behavior changes. Withdrawal. I laughed once, sharp and humorless. She said she wanted me gone, I said. Now she's trying to erase me legally. Daniel's voice stayed steady. Then we do the opposite. We make you visible. Rational. Calm. Unassailable. That night, I wrote a letter. Not to Miranda. To myself. I wrote down every date. Every payment. Every conversation. Every sentence she'd said that crossed a line. I wrote until my hand cramped. Then I slept better than I had in months. Because for the first time, I wasn't reacting. I was preparing. And Miranda had no idea what was coming next. I spent the next 3 days doing something Miranda never believed I was capable of, nothing reckless. No angry texts. No emotional calls. No posts. No explanations. Silence unnerves manipulators more than confrontation ever will. Daniel advised me to keep a routine, so I did. I woke up early at Harbor Point Flats, worked out, answered emails, cooked simple meals. I kept receipts. I saved screenshots. I logged every interaction. When Miranda texted, I didn't block her, I archived everything. Her messages followed a pattern. First came concern. Then confusion. Then pressure. Then threat. By day 4, she stopped pretending. You're not thinking clearly, she wrote at 2:14 a.m. This money broke you. I'm doing this to protect us. Protect us. The phrase tasted rotten now. That morning, Daniel called again. She's officially requested a psychological evaluation, he said. Voluntary, for now. For now, I repeated. She's pushing the angle that you're dissociating. That sudden wealth destabilized you. I smiled. Then she underestimated how boring stability looks. We scheduled my evaluation for the very next day. I didn't resist it. I welcomed it. The psychiatrist was a woman in her late 40s with sharp eyes and an even sharper pen. Her office smelled like citrus and old books. She asked careful questions. I gave careful answers. Why did I leave the house? Because my wife told me she wished I would stop living. How did that make me feel? Clear. Did I feel anger? Briefly. Then resolve. Did I intend to harm myself or others? No. Did I feel paranoid? No. I feel observant. She paused there. Those aren't the same thing, she said. No, I agreed. They're not. The session lasted 90 minutes. At the end, she closed her folder and leaned back. You're not unstable, she said plainly. You're responding to psychological stress with boundaries. That's healthy. I exhaled slowly. Her report was thorough, calm, clinical, and devastating to Miranda's narrative. That afternoon, Miranda escalated again. She sent me a screenshot of a drafted email, addressed to my parents, coworkers, and 2 of our mutual friends. The subject line read, "Concern for Ethan's well-being." "You're forcing my hand," she wrote. Daniel didn't flinch when I showed him. "Good," he said. "Now we move." We filed first. Not aggressively, strategically. Daniel submitted documentation showing Miranda's statements, her attempts to control finances, her push for evaluation without cause, her coordinated messaging with Lauren. We didn't accuse her of malice. We let the facts speak. 2 days later, Miranda showed up unannounced at Daniel's office. I wasn't there. She demanded to see me anyway. "She says you're being manipulated," Daniel told me afterward. "That someone poisoned you against her." Did she name who? She implied money. That night, Lauren finally texted me directly. "I hope you're getting help," she wrote. "Miranda is terrified. This isn't you." I replied once. "You don't know me." She didn't respond. The pressure campaign failed quietly. Friends stopped calling. Whispers dried up. The story Miranda wanted to spread never fully took shape because there was no chaos to point at, only paperwork and calm. Then came the invitation. Miranda asked to meet me at Winterline Bistro. Public. Neutral. Civil. Daniel advised caution. I agreed to go, with conditions. No accusations. No recordings from her side. No third parties. She arrived early. She always liked control. She looked different. Less polished. Her confidence had a crack in it now. "You look fine," she said when I sat down. "I am." She folded her hands. "I didn't mean what I said." "I know," I replied. "You meant what it would accomplish." Her lips tightened. "This didn't have to become a legal situation," she said. "You made it one the moment you questioned my sanity instead of my boundaries." She looked around, lowering her voice. "You embarrassed me. I preserved myself." She stared at me like I was a stranger. Maybe I was. "What do you want?" she asked. The question came out softer than expected. I want financial separation finalized, I said. I want a mediated divorce. I want no more narratives about my mental state. She laughed weakly. You think you won? I shook my head. I think I survived. She leaned back, eyes narrowing. You'll regret this. You threw away everything. I stood. No. I stopped paying for my own erasure. I left cash on the table and walked out. 2 weeks later, Miranda's lawyer contacted Daniel. They wanted to settle. Quietly. No claims. No evaluations. No public drama. Just signatures. As I signed the final documents, something unexpected happened. I felt nothing. No triumph. No bitterness. Just space. The story she tried to write about me never stuck. Because I didn't fight it emotionally, I dismantled it structurally. And that's when I realized something chilling. If I hadn't stayed calm, if I'd reacted loudly, if I'd tried to defend myself instead of documenting, I might have lost everything, including my voice. And Miranda knew that. She just didn't expect me to disappear in a way she couldn't control. The settlement didn't arrive with drama. No shouting matches. No courtroom standoffs. Just an email with a subject line that felt smaller than everything it represented. Proposed resolution, Cole versus Cole. Daniel forwarded it with one line, read carefully. This ends the leverage. I read it 3 times. Miranda agreed to a mediated divorce. Full financial separation. No spousal claims tied to my contracts. A mutual non-disparagement clause. No statements about mental fitness, private or public. Each party would walk away with what was already legally theirs. She wanted it quiet. That alone told me everything. We signed 2 weeks later in a conference room that smelled like printer toner and old coffee. Miranda sat across from me, posture perfect, face controlled. Lauren wasn't there. That absence felt intentional. When the final page slid across the table, Miranda hesitated. You really won't reconsider? She asked. I didn't look up. There's nothing to reconsider. She swallowed. After everything, you're just done? I signed my name. I'm finished. The pen clicked softly. That was it. No speech. No apology. No closure scene like the movies promise. Just an ending that didn't ask for permission. Afterward, I walked out alone and sat in my car for a long time without starting the engine. Not because I was overwhelmed, but because I was adjusting to a quiet that wasn't fragile. The first few days after the settlement felt unreal. Like I'd stepped out of a loud room and my ears hadn't caught up yet. My phone stayed silent. No emergency texts. No accusations disguised as concern. No pressure. That's when the leaks started. Not from me. From the cracks Miranda couldn't seal. A mutual friend called, someone who hadn't spoken to me in months. Hey, she said carefully. Can I ask you something? Sure. Did Miranda really tell people you were unstable? I paused. What did she tell you? There was a sigh on the other end. That the money messed with your head. That you scared her. That she was trying to help. And now? And now, she said, her story keeps changing. That became the pattern. The therapist she'd supposedly consulted never backed her version. Lauren stopped posting vague concern stories. One vendor quietly asked me why Miranda had blamed me for unpaid invoices that were dated after I'd left. Truth doesn't explode. It seeps. And seepage ruins facades. A month after the settlement, I ran into Miranda unexpectedly at a grocery store in Brookhaven. Same aisle. Holiday decorations already up, too early and too loud. She froze when she saw me. You look different, she said. So do you. She glanced around like she was afraid someone might be listening. People are asking questions. I'm not answering any. She laughed bitterly. That's the worst part. You don't have to. I picked up a box of cereal and put it in my cart. That's how narratives die. When no one feeds them. Her jaw tightened. You think you're some kind of victim. No, I said. I think I stopped volunteering. I walked away before she could respond. That night, I sat alone in Harbor Point Flats and opened my notebook, the same one I'd carried through the whole mess. I flipped back to the first page I'd written after leaving the house. Tomorrow, I start disappearing on my terms. I realized something then. I hadn't disappeared. I'd reappeared somewhere she couldn't reach. The money settled fully a week later. Contracts cleared. Accounts clean. No shared access. No surprise withdrawals. Just numbers sitting still, finally behaving like numbers instead of emotional leverage. Michael Stern called to confirm everything was finalized. You did this the right way, he said. Most people don't. What's the wrong way? They wait for permission to protect themselves. After the call, I did something I'd been postponing. I went back to the house in Cedar Ridge. Not to confront. Not to reminisce. To retrieve the last box of personal items Miranda had boxed up for me. The house looked different. Emptier. Like it had already started forgetting us. She wasn't home. I was grateful for that. In the spare bedroom, I found the box labeled Ethan, miscellaneous. Inside were old notebooks, cables, a framed photo of us on our honeymoon I didn't remember taking, and a folded piece of paper. My handwriting. A note I'd written years earlier and forgotten about. If I ever feel small in my own life, it's time to change the room. I sat on the floor and laughed quietly. I hadn't changed the room. I'd changed the rules. When Miranda came home later and saw my car gone again, she texted once. "You didn't say you were coming." I didn't reply. A week after that, Daniel forwarded me one last message from Miranda's lawyer. She's requesting to amend the non-disparagement clause to allow a personal reflection post. Daniel added, I advise declining. I agreed. Some stories don't need your side to survive. They just need you to stop correcting lies. I declined the amendment. That was the last official communication we had. December arrived quietly. No Christmas party. No lights strung along staircases for appearances. I spent the holiday alone by choice, not loneliness, choice. I cooked a simple meal. Watched snow fall outside Harbor Point Flats. Thought about the version of myself from a year ago, the man who believed love meant endurance. I understood now. Endurance without respect isn't love. It's erosion. And erosion looks peaceful right up until the structure collapses. Miranda never publicly apologized. She didn't have to. Her silence spoke louder than anything she could have said. Because silence, when it's chosen, is not weakness. It's distance. And distance was exactly what I needed to survive what came next. I didn't go back to Cedar Ridge to make a statement. That's the part people always get wrong. I went back because there was one loose end I refused to carry into whatever came next. One final thing that didn't belong in a box, a folder, or a lawyer's email. Something that needed to be placed deliberately, by hand, so it couldn't be rewritten later. It was a Tuesday morning. Cold, bright, ordinary. The kind of day that doesn't feel important until you realize it is. Miranda was out of town. I knew because her calendar still synced to the old shared tablet she'd forgotten to remove from the account, one last quiet oversight. A strategy retreat with Lauren. The irony didn't escape me. I let myself into the house using the key I hadn't returned yet. The place smelled different. New air freshener. Something floral and sharp, like an attempt to overwrite memory instead of clean it. The furniture was rearranged. The walls looked barer, as if even the house had started distancing itself. I didn't wander. I didn't linger. I went straight to the dining table. That table had been the center of everything, holidays, arguments, negotiations disguised as conversations. It felt right that this would be the end point too. I set my bag down and took out the folder. Not a dramatic folder. Plain. Thin. Clean. Inside were copies, never originals, of documents Miranda already knew existed but had never really looked at closely. The financial separation agreement. The timeline Daniel had assembled. The therapist's report clearing me. A summary ledger Michael Stern had helped me prepare. Dates. Numbers. Facts. No adjectives. On top of that stack, I placed one more thing. A single page. Typed. Centered. No letterhead. Miranda. You told me the greatest surprise would be if I stopped living. So I did, just not the way you expected. I stopped living as your safety net. I stopped living as your buffer. I stopped living as something you could remove when it became inconvenient. Everything attached to my name has been cancelled, separated, or concluded. Nothing here is revenge. This is the cost of clarity. You said life would be easier without me. Now you get to find out if that's true, without rewriting the past. Ethan. I read it once more, folded the page neatly, and placed it on top of the folder. Then I did something else. I removed my wedding ring. I hadn't worn it since the night I left, but I'd kept it. Not out of hope, out of habit. The same way you keep an old key even after the lock has been changed. I set it on the paper, exactly centered. Not thrown. Not hidden. Placed. I took one last look around the room, not with nostalgia, but with neutrality. Like checking out of a place you stayed too long because it was familiar, not because it was right. Then I walked out. I locked the door behind me and slid the key through the mail slot. No note. No message. No follow-up. The next time I heard from Miranda was 3 days later. She didn't call. She emailed. Subject, what is this supposed to mean? I didn't open it. Daniel had warned me this moment would come, the final attempt to reframe, to pull me back into a conversation where words could be bent again. I didn't bite. What I did instead was finish what I'd already started. I canceled the last remaining payments that weren't legally required. Subscriptions. Services. Quiet conveniences she'd never noticed until they disappeared. Then I redirected something else. A portion of my income, modest, deliberate, went into a new account tied to a private foundation I'd set up weeks earlier. No press. No announcements. Just structure. The foundation wasn't about proving anything. It wasn't even about generosity. It was about permanence. Money that couldn't be used against me, or anyone else, ever again. When Michael Stern reviewed it, he nodded once. "This removes leverage permanently," he said. "That's the point." The silence after that was different. Not tense. Empty. Miranda tried once more through a mutual acquaintance. A carefully worded message about closure and understanding. I declined. Because closure isn't something you request from the person you tried to erase. It's something you give yourself when you stop explaining. Months passed. Brookhaven moved on. So did the whispers. Stories lose energy when there's no reaction to feed on. I moved out of Harbor Point Flats and into a smaller place near the water. Fewer rooms. Fewer echoes. I liked it that way. I started running again. Not for fitness, for rhythm. I slept without checking my phone. I stopped flinching at notifications. One afternoon, Lauren blocked me on everything. I smiled when I noticed, not out of spite, but relief. That was a door closing I hadn't needed to touch. The last update I heard about Miranda came indirectly. A mutual friend mentioned she'd downsized. Sold the house in Cedar Ridge. Moved closer to the city. She says she's starting over, the friend said. Good, I replied. And I meant it. Because starting over is hard when you've spent so long believing someone else would always absorb the impact for you. Sometimes I think about that sentence she said, the one that started everything. Not with anger. With clarity. Because what she really revealed that night wasn't cruelty. It was entitlement. And entitlement collapses the moment it stops being funded. I didn't destroy her life. I withdrew my participation from a version of it that required my disappearance. That's all. If you're listening to this and something in it hit closer than you expected, if you've ever been made to feel like your existence was negotiable, remember this. You don't have to disappear loudly. You don't have to prove pain. You don't have to beg for decency. Sometimes the most shocking thing you can do is step away cleanly and leave the truth sitting right where it belongs. If this story meant something to you, consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss the next one. You can also leave a comment, tell me where you're watching from or what time it is for you right now. Even a single word lets these stories reach the people who need them.